What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, or wherever you are, and whatever time it is. Welcome back to yet another video with your man, Immersiaholic. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another online battle with the Divided Impera of all mod for Total War Rome 2. And today we have Galatia, played by your man, Immersiaholic, taking on the Odrysian Kingdom, played by my good friend Kalogero. This is going to be very interesting because both of these factions have been overhauled in the most recent 1.3 update, and this battle is being conducted with the 1.3 beta. So stats of these units may change after the beta's release, but it's unlikely. And if they do, it'll probably just be some minor changes. So let's go in and check out the army composition for Galatia, and then we'll check out the Odrysians once we can see them on the battlefield. Okay, so first off, we are on the Ariminum map. Ariminum map. I always forget how you're supposed to say that, but basically this is in Italy, around the town of Ariminium. That's it, Ariminium. And so this is actually one of my favorite battle maps because it has a lot of terrain. The only issue with it is that it does have a fairly steep hill over here when you're using the larger battlefield somewhat, which we are, of course. So there is all of this terrain, which kind of can turn into a bit of a camp fest. I haven't seen it happen too much yet in these battles, but yeah, I just love this kind of terrain where you have these hills here, you have this open ground, more hills with some impassable terrain. It just offers some very interesting and fun battles, which is why I chose to do this map. Unfortunately though, we won't be utilizing a lot of that, and you'll see why shortly. But anyway, let's talk about the Galatian army. We have the Galatian medium cavalry, a dedicated mid-tier melee cavalry unit. Then we have Cappadocian lancers right here, just the one shot cavalry unit. We then have Galatian skirmishers behind them, Galatian Furio spears. I'll try to get some close-ups too, as I believe all, if not most, of these units have been adjusted in the 1.3 update, although we will be doing an overview of Galatia soon, so I won't bother with too much close-ups. Then going to the front of our main formation here, we have some Galatian swordsmen. Now these guys aren't the good Galatian swordsmen that you might know from the campaign when you play like Egypt or something. These guys have very poor statistics. However, they do have 300 men per unit, and they do have a Furio style shield. So, I mean, their stats aren't terrible. An attack of 11, defensive 9 is okay, but their armor is only 10, base around 42. So these guys probably not going to be getting all that many kills, but I basically wanted them to soak up the charge of the Odrysians. At least that was my plan. Then we have 5 units of Galatian legionaries. We're going to get a close-up of these bad boys. Proper legionaries right here. Very cool unit. I'm not sure how effective they are in combat yet. I still need to do some more testing. But generally speaking, they look amazing, and I really want to try to use them a lot more. Especially if I ever get access to them on a campaign. Very cool unit. In the rear, we have some Galatian light spearmen. Close to a Furio spear level unit, but kind of below it. Some Galatian archers, just one unit. Our Galatian general, which is a Galatian noble cav unit, which is a very heavy melee cavalry unit. Very nice cav unit. More Galatian spearmen. On the far right flank, it mirrors our left with Galatian medium cav, Furio spears, and then Galatian skirmishers. We actually don't have two sets of cavalry out here on our left flank, so it's going to be a weakness of ours. Now let's go ahead and press play. This is going to be a pretty long battle. I'm going to try and skip through some of the downtime that is in it. But anyway, let's go press play, and then once we see the Odrysian Kingdom's army, we'll start to go over their roster as well, like we always do. You can see I have some pretty severe move orders for my army early on. I'm really trying to rush them forward and get them up here along the ridgeline. My plan was to set up a defensive formation up here. Hopefully, Kalogero would be spawning somewhere like around here, would work his way towards this hill, maybe even more around here. Immediately though, we do see his cavalry. Two sets of Thracian skirmisher cav. These guys are going to be very difficult for me to deal with, as I don't have any long-range skirmishers. We also do begin to see some of his units over here in the distance, but we don't see his whole army for a while. But it was enough for me to know that the majority of his army was coming towards the hill. Whether he was going to go sit up on top of it or not, I didn't know at the time. So you'll see me do some pretty massive changes with my army, because obviously he has scouts right here, and then he has a blob of units up there. A lot more cavalry and a lot more infantry, so it's pretty obvious he shouldn't have many, if any, units down here in the northeastern corner. So what I'm going to be doing is I'll still be paying attention to my right-hand flank, just in case he does try to sneak up any units, but generally speaking, I'm going to try and reform my line like this, and then I'll be moving my army over here shortly as well. And then I'll be keeping some cav along with some javelins and whatnot in front of my army. They will be adjusted depending on what I want them to do, but basically they're a screening force for my main army. I can't have him skirmishing my main army to death, as we don't have any long-range skirmishers. So pretty big mistake on my part, although I'm not really used to playing, one, as the Galatians, and two, against the Odrysians. I've only ever played against them a few times in DEI, so I definitely was struggling to figure out what to expect with them. I mean, on the Grand Campaign, yeah, sure, I can predict what they're going to do. But in an online battle, their only specialty that I know of is having some good cavalry, and then their shock infantry. So I was basically expecting a bit of a rush build, some shock infantry, combined with some throwaway swords. But instead what we have is an opening skirmishing phase with him, with his 2 units of skirmisher cav. He'll be floating around quite a lot, trying to get any targets of opportunity he can. I'm going to be trying to back off pretty far. You can see his army is out here trying to swing around now towards me. Probably did some scouting up here, made sure that I didn't have any units hidden, but he has 3 more units of cav, so he's brought 5 units of cav, and I only had 3 in total. So instantly out of the gate, he has the skirmishing advantage, and he has a cavalry advantage, all with just his cavalry units. So not a great start for me. Depends on the rest of his army and how it looks. We're starting to see lots of blobs of infantry up here. Once again, it's pretty obvious his army was up here trying to form some kind of battle line like that, so I wasn't really too worried about my right-hand flank, although I did keep my skirmishers out here that were hidden, and then I have one of my units of cavalry out here. The, what unit is this? I still don't know their Latin names. Galatian medium cav out here. I'm sorry, I know some of you guys use the Latin names and whatnot, but I'm mainly sticking with the English names. Tries to send his cavalry up here to do some scouting. I try to bait them in with my cav coming down in the open, just so we can get some volleys off with our javelins. We start to get volleys off. I send forward my cavalry, try and charge him down. Now this is where I was kind of confused. You see my cavalry, they get into the charge animation, which usually almost always guarantees that your unit will catch up with the enemy unit. But despite them getting into that charge formation, they actually didn't catch up to the Thracians. And that's why I'm kind of still pushing it, trying to catch up to them. But in a second here, I will turn them around. But I just really couldn't believe that they got away. I don't know if it's just because of their speed, or maybe the charge animation of cavalry has been altered. I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything about that. It's probably not the case, but basically I was very surprised that he was able to just instantly run away from my cav. They were very mobile, and this is 120 men per unit for his skirmisher cav, so that's going to be a big problem for me. Skirmishing phase of this battle lasts for quite a while, and there's not really a lot I can do besides try to draw him in and then try to ambush him with certain units like my skirmishers, javelin, cavalry, whatever. But essentially what I'm going to be trying to focus on doing is just blocking his skirmishing capability. You'll see me move my men over here into this forest soon as well, because I can't corner him. I can't dedicate the amount of resources I need to go and annihilate him when he is starting to move out his full proper army now. I don't think this is enough for us to see his whole army just yet. We will go over the Odrysian army very shortly, but we do have to keep in mind skirmisher cav are out here still. Looks like he only has the 2 units of skirmisher cav. We're also seeing long range skirmishers for him. Oh no, that's their pelters, 2 units of pelters. So that's not good, because I know the Thracians have very nice pelters. They usually have armor piercing damage. And as I'm trying to form up my battle lines right here, I start to notice how heavy he is on the cavalry in this fight, especially 5 units of cav. That's quite a lot. So what you'll see me do here in a moment is I'm actually going to rotate my entire army over here into the forest and just try to sit for a while. I didn't want to camp inside the forest. My plan was to try and hold there until I could deal with his skirmishing contingents, or at least try to wear down his cavalry. So in just a few moments here, you'll be seeing me give that move order for my entire army to go over there. But yeah, I was basically trying to decide what to do. Because what do you do in this situation? I don't have long-range skirmishes to stop his cavalry. He has better infantry than me. At least mainline infantry. He has a lot of cavalry, so even if I try to like do a frontal charge across his front line, his cav will just come on down and intercept anyway. I wasn't really sure what to do. I was kind of frozen in this battle, to be honest. You guys will see the end result, but generally speaking, throughout the battle, you're going to see me kind of not know what to do in this kind of situation. Basically, his army composition is perfect for taking care of my army composition. I would love to hear what you guys would suggest with this army comp I have. But yeah, it's not looking very good. He's in a pretty good position. My main minor advantage is terrain. I have the forest around here, which I'm using to try and conceal my cavalry. You can see I have some right here. Trying to bait him in. Chase me down into the forest. It's unlikely it'll work, but if he chases deep enough into the forest, I can try to circle around and trap him. But that's just so hard to do, and Kalogero's a smart player. He immediately looks for more troops as well, spots my skirmishers. My units are getting spotted so quickly as well in this battle. I was surprised by that, to be honest, but it is what it is. Alright, we're seeing pretty much the entirety of the Odrysian army, so let's go ahead. We're pretty much past the skirmishing phase, and we'll talk about the Odrysian roster. So going from left to right, you can see that he's trying to form up a 2-line formation with a small group in the rear. On the left-hand side, actually we'll go on the left along the front. So he has Long Spear Furio Spears, a brand new unit to the Odrysians. These guys are essentially Furio Spears, but they have longer spears. I know, that's shocking, right? But these guys seem to be really, really strong. Fantastic stats across the board. Very high attack for a spear unit. Good armor, 25. Morale is excellent. They really aren't lacking in any department, which to me is kind of a bit much for a spear unit. Having 12 melee attack for a spear unit might be a bit much in my opinion. Maybe something a bit more akin to like a 9 would be perhaps better, just for balancing issues. Just some general feedback, but very cool looking unit, and I really love the idea of them. But man, these guys are strong. They're going to do very, very well. He then has Long Spear Peltus behind him. Is there any... What are the differences statistically with them? Yeah, they're just behind the Furio Spears in stats across the entire board. They do have some armor piercing capabilities, but so do the Furios. So yeah, okay. Weapon damage is almost the exact same, but Furio Spears are just better slightly across the board. These guys, despite being called a Peltus, they don't actually have any javelins, so something worth noting. Anyway, getting back to the army comp, sorry about that. Late Thracian infantry. 1, 2, 3, 4, and... Where's the 5th unit? There is 5 of them. I can't see it though. Is it back here? No, that's over on fire. I can't see the 5th man. Maybe he's like right around here. It's just hidden from line of sight. But he did have 5 late Thracian warriors. These guys also very, very strong unit. Great stats across the board for like a mid-tier sword. Borderline heavy swordsman really with that armor 25. However, they have 300 men per unit. And they have a javelin. Just wow. That is almost ridiculous. Very, very beautiful frontline unit. These guys will deal a lot of damage, and they have a javelin. Bonus versus elephants at 15. Like, again, this is kind of a unit that isn't really lacking anything. Very interesting to see this unit be adjusted like that. But yeah, he has that as his main line on the far right hand side. More long Furio spears. We then have the Long Spear Peltus again. In the center of his formation, in the second line, we have his cavalry. Tribali Lances, Tribali Lances, and Tribali Lances. So 3 sets of shock cavalry. Very solid shock cav. A very good armor of 33, despite them only being called a medium shock cav unit. I would probably call them a high tier shock cav unit, at least for as far as barbarians go, because that armor of 33 is definitely respectable. Only downfall is no melee defense really for them. Behind them, 2 sets of Thracian Peltas. Excellent Peltas unit, one of the best there is. Like I said, Tribali. So he has 3 units of Tribalis. Then has a late run fire warrior shock infantry unit right here. Oh gosh, give me a good angle, please. Best shock infantry unit in the game, hands down. The late version is just slightly better than the regular. I believe he has a regular over here. Yes, he just has the Thracian run fire warriors here. Still absolutely incredible. These guys don't have the best melee defense though, so they can get ground down if you blunt their charge, which is why I brought so many junk swordsmen. I was expecting to bring a lot more shock infantry, but he only brought 2 sets, so he had a very good army composition, and he knew what I thought he would be bringing. And then we have a new generals unit for the Odrysians, which is the Long Spear Guard. Just a pretty great spear unit all around. They do have a longer spear than normal, so it's not like they're a hoplite or a spearman unit. But yeah, just pretty solid. They don't actually... Do they even have abilities? No. Doesn't say that they have defensive formation or anything, so just a pretty probably cost-effective spear unit, I would imagine. But anyway, let's go ahead and press play, check out what the Odrysians do. And then, of course, in addition to all of that, he does have his shock cav in the rear, but we've already talked about them. You see my movement order come in to try and move over here, set up positions. I'll get even more into the forest. Yep, there it is. You can see the movement orders coming through right now. I did have the trees turned on for this battle, so that probably wasn't too helpful for me. Definitely hurt me a little bit with that. I probably should have turned them off. In fact, I'll go ahead and turn them off now for your viewing pleasure real quick. So there we go. We've turned off the trees. I know it's not exactly the most beautiful thing in the world to look at, but it will help you guys see my formation inside the forest, and I think that's a little bit more important. Feedback on that would be appreciated. You can see I am trying to use my cavalry to catch up to his own, but I'm just feeding into his strategy of skirmishing my cav to death. I didn't do very well in trying to chase these men off. I was generally pretty disappointed with my performance throughout this battle. But again, you see how close I'm getting right here. So freaking close. But my men would just like, see how they kind of pause right there and just stopped for a minute, and then they get going. It's just so inefficient. Getting so close, so close. They charge and then these guys just stopped. So while I did feed into his strategy, now to be honest, I did mess up a bit with this. I mean, come on, can you blame me? Look at this, I'm touching his men. We're gonna start dealing some damage to his men now. But like far out, dude. That's a lot of time and effort put in just to get a few kills on this guy. They are tired though, so we do have that in our favor, but man, I just couldn't believe we didn't get more kills against his cav after following him for so long. His other unit got away scot-free. No worries about that. So after this, I kind of give up on chasing his cavalry, and you'll see me pull my units back here, and then I'll even pull them back into the forest into different positions to protect my rear. So our army is forming up inside of the forest. Once again, we have our throwaway Galatian swordsmen in the front, legionnaires behind them ready to form up a solid line, spearmen on each flank along with some skirmishers as well, single archer unit here ready to do some flaming shot when needed, spearmen and spearmen here on the right. We did have our general kind of floating around trying to help out our own cavalry, but I'm going to end up bringing him back inside here, and he's just going to chill out around here as well for most of the battle, at least until things get heated up. In the meantime, the Odrysians begin moving forward towards us. He does try to give me a fair bit of time to come out of the forest, and you will see me come out shortly. But yeah, I was really trying to debate on what to do. I spent a lot of this battle trying to figure out how can I counter his excellent army composition, especially with his skirmishing cav. He begins moving his army forward. And with this, we do have the left-hand side of our army held down over here with our skirmishers and one unit of cavalry, and I'm trying to use the others to keep this unit of skirmisher cav at bay. He begins continuing to move forward slowly. He pauses at certain points as well. I was hoping he would get even closer to the forest, try and charge me. His men have been walking this entire time, so the majority of his army is well rested. Here they come. Shock cavalry in the center of his army, you'll note. And I should have seen the reasoning behind this. I know Kalogero, I know he likes to do cheeky shock charges, and you'll see exactly what he'll do here very soon. The battle is about to begin. His skirmisher cav comes in as a taunting measure, and the Galatians are sick and tired of waiting, and with that, the orders are given, and the Galatians begin their charge out of the forest. Galatian swordsmen, followed up by our legionnaires, leave the forest. Hundreds of men, thousands even, are coming out, and they will be received by a hail of massive amounts of javelins from the elite Thracian infantry. The Thracians are very, very well prepared for this, and we're kind of falling into their complete plan, which is, of course, to charge our own infantry with their cavalry. He charges right through his own infantry, gets charges against all of my Galatian swordsmen, and they will suffer catastrophic casualties from that and from the javelins. And then he, of course, charges back in with his late Thracians. It wasn't really needed for him to do this. He would have won that fight anyway, but it does give his Thracians a very nice advantage in that. So, major mistake on my part. I should have known that my man Kalogero was going to do something like that. He's done it in the few battle replays that I've showed you all. And I've just seen him and talked to him about doing it in general. So, big mistake on my part. Regardless, so the Galatians push on. We send swordsmen and spearmen around the flanks to try and keep his men pinned in to stop us from getting outflanked. And then right here, you're going to see a few little targets of opportunity where I'm trying to give our legionnaires attack orders, so they come on in and will hit his men from the side. At least that is the intent behind it. However, the Galatian swordsmen we sent in initially are getting annihilated, and even then, when we do give the attack orders, it's not all that amazing, and it won't be all that much of a flank attack. You can see only about a dozen or so of our men hit the side of his unit. So I am trying to basically create little mini flanks right here. Like this one should have been a pretty good flank. Galatians charging in. But yeah, it's not good enough, essentially, is what it comes down to. I am keeping a lot of my units in reserve as well, so because he has 2 units of skirmisher cav just chilling, I have to keep a lot of my men in the rear. So I have a unit of spears, my archer units right here, cavalry still floating around in the rear, cav, skirmishers. I have like most of these units stuck around the rear of my formation because I'm concerned about being recharged due to his cav advantage. I do kind of begin to ignore that though. You'll see spearmen giving attack orders coming forward shortly, but I mean that could have helped us out massively if instead of having my swords in the front of my formation, I had spears instead. But I didn't, and so now we're paying for it. Our Galatian swordsmen are already routing en masse. The legionnaires are engaging, but they are getting absolutely owned right here by the Thracian heavy infantry. They have 300 men, which is an advantage. I believe they have armor piercing as well. Yep, 7 armor piercing to our 2. 25 armor against our 38 though, so my first time ever using the Galatian legionnaires in such quantities, and to be honest, I was very disappointed in how my Galatians did. But at the same time, I mean, another charge right there. He's just doing excellent work with his microing, with his orders, the timing of orders. It's not even necessarily micromanagement, but the timing in which he initiates attack orders and whatnot. Like right here, I send my general around to try and get to his skirmisher cav. As soon as I begin moving him, he counteracts by sending cavalry forward through a few different spots. So my man Kalogero, he must have been playing a lot or something, because he's on point. I'm very impressed with how he played in this. I see the movement. I begin trying to retreat, draw them towards my friendly cav and skirmishers. His skirmisher cav that was in the rear is still kind of just chilling out there, and in fact he did let it slip, and I was able to get a direct charge onto it. Despite the direct charge though, we are taking casualties in that extended fight. I don't know how that happened, but we took a fair few casualties. At the end of the day though, we should win that fight. Yeah, we do. They end up routing off the field. So one small micro mistake from him, but that's pretty much the only mistake he makes throughout this entire battle. Have our spearmen engage with his own. Our fire warriors are coming in as well, in addition to his Odrysian light infantry. And they're just chopping through our main line. Maybe if our main line didn't get melted so quickly, like right here we have a massive gap, we're about to have more gaps here. We could have stood a bit more of a chance, but you can see the waivers coming in. I mean, it's no secret what's going to happen here, guys. I hate to spoil it early, but his army was just better across the board. His decisions were better. He just outplayed me completely. I did want to try and focus on using some of the Galatian units I've never used before, so I know my army composition wasn't good. I wanted to just try something different, but he just brought in an extremely good army composition. And doing that against a player as skilled as Kalogero, that's where you're going to suffer and pay for it, at least in terms of wins and losses. Here comes the Galatian king charging in with one last final charge. But with that last charge, that's essentially it. The battle's over. We have, what, 1 minute left in it. But routes across the entire field. Galatians are getting slaughtered en masse. And the worst part is that he has the majority of his army intact. Yeah, he has a few units routing, but that's not a big deal. They'll come back from routing, and even the ones that did rout, they still had quite a few kills to their name. We have our men over here who have done some recharging on his flank, but it's too late for them to have any real impact. So let's go ahead and do some fast forwarding. I really hope you guys did enjoy seeing these two factions in an online battle. They've both been overhauled in the most recent 1.3 update. So I'll be posting more online battles of the 1.3 beta. If you guys have particular factions you would like to see me play or others play, just get to watch them in videos here, please do let me know. Always open to suggestions. But yeah, did another very interesting battle with Kalogero, which I'll be showing you guys in the near future as well. But now that we have been officially wiped out, we get a close defeat according to the game, although in reality it was a pretty decisive defeat. Let's go to the statistics just very quickly, and then we'll end it after that. So here we are at the statistics screen, and you can see that my man Kalogero selected his army very wisely. A very nice call of late Thracian infantry. These guys were absolutely incredible. They were almost at the level of Roman legionnaires, but they also had 300 men per unit and a javelin. Insanely powerful units. Arguably too powerful. I do need to see them in action a little bit more to see what kind of recommendations or feedback I could give. This is a beta, keep in mind, so it is the time to give feedback when you can. So if any of you guys have been using the Odrysians, I'd love to see your opinions on them. Fire warriors didn't even break a sweat, and they both got around 150 kills each, so that's it to be expected. I'm surprised they didn't get more kills, although they probably didn't have all that many men to fight. His long spears, the blue shielded ones are his long spears. They did very good. That's the Furious long spears, and then here we have the Peltis long spears as well. They all did actually very good. Very high amounts of kills for very few losses, which is kind of weird for a spearman unit, considering these guys didn't really fight any of my cav units. So I'm not really sure why they did so well. Again, their attack was very, very high, so perhaps too high with them. Thracian Peltis, We got some good kills considering they're just pelters. But yeah, they could have done better potentially. But I mean, his Thracian infantry just annihilated my army. His cavalry, to be honest, he probably didn't get the bang for his buck that he needed with his cav. However, his 2 units of skirmisher cav right here, even though they didn't get many kills, they tied up a lot of my units and distracted basically about a third of my army. In the end, I ended up committing the majority of my army to the battle. However, his skirmisher cav did get me running around for quite a while. So even though their kills aren't that good, they were still very useful in their cost effectiveness. The only thing that I would say wasn't very cost effective was his shock cavalry. 1, 2, 3 units of it, and combined, these relatively expensive shock cav got just over 100 kills combined. I don't know, around 140, 50. But even still, I wouldn't say that's worth it. You probably didn't need this many, is what I'm trying to get at. You probably could have done just as well with having just like 2 units of shock cavalry, and then 1 more additional like run fire warrior unit, or just any other kind of unit. He could have got something a little bit more cost effective. My army, obviously not ideal. My Galatia Legionnaires did pretty terrible across the board. The best unit getting 139 kills, nowhere near good enough. My spearmen didn't do much, but they weren't expected to. They're pretty low, trashy tier spearmen. My swordsmen, man, they did horrendous. And while their stats were pretty low and I didn't expect them to do well, that's 4 units out of my 20 stack army that got, what, 60 kills total combined? Like 60, 70? That's just disgusting. It's nowhere near good enough for the amount of slots that they take up in my army. So really, him charging in with his cavalry certainly did hamper them a lot. They got hit by skirmisher fire and charged by his excellent Thracian infantry. So, I mean, while it is a shame that they didn't do as well as they did, at the same time, it is understandable and explainable. However, the Legionnaires, man, they just got chewed up. I really thought their high attack and defense and armor would be an excellent combination to allow our troops to kind of grind out against his own. Especially considering he only brought 2 run fire warrior units, but it didn't matter. His Thracians were just better. They had more men. Their stats, while not as high in terms of armor and whatnot, they still had the armor piercing and they still had solid attack and defense. So more than enough for our Legionnaires to handle. Thurio spears, kind of meh, didn't really do much, as well as our archers. Skirmishers were helpful. Their kills were mainly tailored towards his Thracian infantry when they started attacking our main line, and his cavalry. So, I mean, 60 kills, not good, but it's not bad, not terrible. Cavalry across the board didn't do very well, especially my Cappadocia Lancers, which were quite expensive, but I've never really used those in an online battle, so I just want to check them out. But yeah, that's kind of what it comes down to. My army composition generally was just quite bad. He caught me off guard with his composition because I didn't really know the changes with the Odrysian roster. I'm still trying to get used to the barbarian changes, and they just have excellent core high tier infantry. Basically, that combined with their cavalry, just man, they are a force to be reckoned with. And he hardly brought any shock infantry. He only brought 2 on fire warriors. Imagine if he had 4 or 5. This would have been so much more decisive in his favor, even though it already was decisive. So, mad props to my man Kalogero. He destroyed me, and he just outsmarted me at every turn. Very high props to him. I'm definitely looking forward to trying the Odrysians myself, and I would also love to hear your guys' feedback on what you think so far of the changes to the barbarian factions in 1.3. Expect more online battles coming out in the next week or 2 covering these factions, of course. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one.